The world first heard her name when she disappeared. It was a rainy Tuesday in April when the news broke. 18-year-old girl disappears just hours after being released from a maximum security prison. She hadn't even changed clothes, wearing the same faded beige uniform she grew up in. She walked out of prison with nothing but a book clutched in her hand and vanished. That night, social media exploded. Who was she? Why did she disappear? Then came the video. Grainy, leaked, just 42 seconds long. It showed her standing at the gates of the prison, rain soaking through her uniform, staring directly into the security camera with a look that chilled everyone who saw it. Not fear, not sadness. Purpose. 12 hours later, a cryptic message appeared on her old foster care file, left unsigned. You took my childhood, now I'll take the truth. And with that, the world couldn't look away, but to understand what happened that day, and what she was about to do, we have to go back to the moment she was born. Why was a baby born inside a prison? And how did she grow into the girl who shook the entire system to its knees? Her name was Amara Holloway, and she took her first breath under flickering fluorescent lights. Inside Graybrook Correctional Facility, her mother, Serena Holloway, gave birth to her chained to a hospital bed, guarded by 2 armed officers. Amara didn't cry at birth. She just opened her eyes and stared. The prison nurses said they'd never seen anything like it. She didn't scream. She watched, like she knew where she was. Serena was serving 25 years for a crime she swore she didn't commit. And since no one in her family stepped forward to take Amara, the baby stayed with her mother in the prison's mother-child unit most states don't even have anymore. The other inmates called her Cell Baby. She learned to walk on concrete floors. Her lullabies were echoes of slamming metal doors and distant screams. Her childhood books, legal documents her mother read out loud from their shared bunk. But Serena didn't just raise her daughter, she educated her. By age 5, Amara could quote Supreme Court rulings. By 8, she had memorized her mother's entire case file. By 10, she started asking the guards why the cameras had no audio. She wasn't just growing, she was watching, and quietly, she was planning. Amara was allowed outside the cell block only once a week, for 1 hour in the prison's small, neglected library. It was there she met Officer Rubin, a kind man in his 60s who secretly slipped her books meant for college students, history, philosophy, journalism, books no child her age should have been able to read, let alone understand. But she didn't just read, she absorbed. She questioned, she wrote in hidden corners of notebooks and napkins. She started collecting stories from other women inside, wrongfully convicted mothers, beaten inmates, medical neglect, guards who threatened and silenced, files that disappeared. The prison was supposed to silence her. Instead, it sharpened her. But no one, not even her mother, knew just how deep her plan went. And on her 18th birthday, when she walked out of Graybrook for the first time in her life, the nation had no idea what was coming. What did she uncover behind those bars? And why did her first step into freedom become the first step in a war? Most children mark their childhood in school years. Amara marked hers by cell block, numbers and head counts. There was no playground in Graybrook, no birthday cakes, no friends from the outside. Her only real friend was her mother, and even Serena was growing distant, not emotionally protectively by the time Amara was 12. She had already started asking dangerous questions. Why do some women never get visitors? Why are medical records sealed? Why does no one investigate when a woman dies in solitary? Serena grew tense every time Amara asked. She'd pull her daughter close, whisper warnings. Some truths will bury you before you speak them. But Amara couldn't stop. She needed to know why the system was so broken, why women like her mother vanished into it, and why no one outside seemed to care. That's when she began recording everything in the margins of library books, on scraps of paper she tucked into her mattress. In a tiny journal she hid inside the spine of an old law textbook. It was more than notes. It was evidence. Stories from over 30 women, names, dates, bruises, and she had a code for each. Even if someone found her journal, they wouldn't understand what they were reading, but one person almost did. When she was 14, a new guard transferred to Officer Lenton Young, smiling, too friendly. He offered her candy, brought her magazines, said he'd get her special books if she gave him just a little time alone. She said no. He smiled and left. That night, her journal disappeared. 2 days later, she found it tossed into a toilet, soaked, pages torn. That was the first time Amara cried in years. Not because she was afraid, but because she realized something brutal. She was completely alone. After that, Serena changed. She stopped warning Amara to stay quiet. Instead, she started helping her hide smarter. Think smarter. Plan smarter. I can't leave here, Serena said one night, her voice calm but sharp. But you will. And when you do, don't just survive. Make them see. Amara kept quiet after that. She pretended to obey, to follow rules, to forget, but deep down, she was building something by age 16. She had memorized the prison's layout. She could time the shift changes to the second. She even learned which Wi-Fi signals leaked in from a nearby administrative building, and how to bounce messages through them undetected. She didn't have a phone, but she had Officer Rubin, her only true ally. Without ever saying why, she asked him for help creating something anonymous, a secure email, a digital storage locker, a place to hide the documents she was collecting. He never asked questions. He just looked at her one day and said, "If you're going to burn it all down, be ready to live in the ashes." On her 18th birthday, Amara packed nothing. No suitcase, no goodbye letters. She hugged her mother in silence, then walked through the main gate and into the cold. Grey morning, no one stopped her. They thought she had nothing. No money, no plan, no voice. They were wrong. Amara had already sent her entire prison archive, every document, every coded testimony, every recorded moment, to 5 anonymous journalists across the country, each with a letter. You don't know me, but you know this system, and now you know the truth. In 24 hours, you'll know my name, and so will everyone else. The girl born behind bars was free, and in less than a week, she would bring the walls of Greybrook shaking to the ground. What did the files reveal? And how did one girl's story ignite a national firestorm that couldn't be stopped? The leak dropped like a bomb. Headlines roared across every screen. Whistleblower Born in prison leaks shocking abuse files. The Holloway files, what one girl exposed could change everything. It wasn't just a story, it was a stormer tidal wave of buried secrets, corruption, and human suffering pulled into the light. And at the center of it all, Amara Holloway, the girl no one outside prison walls had ever heard of. Until now, the files she leaked were beyond anything anyone expected. Over 200 pages of carefully documented cases. A woman who miscarried alone in solitary confinement and wasn't found for 14 hours. Another who had been beaten by guards after filing a sexual harassment complaint. A 62-year-old cancer patient. Denied medication until she lost her ability to speak. Every page had names, dates, and internal memos. Some even had photos. She didn't just tell the world what happened. She proved it. At first, officials claimed the documents were fake. But the journalists prepared and smart cross-referenced everything. Within days, they confirmed it. The files were 100% real. Graybrook tried to go silent. No press statements, no interviews. But silence only made the world listen harder. Soon, protests began outside the prison gates. And Amara, she was nowhere to be found. For a full week, she didn't speak publicly. Reporters begged for interviews. Advocates called her a hero. Politicians demanded to know who had helped her. But Amara stayed hidden, because she wasn't done yet. Behind the scenes, she was working with a team of young volunteer hackers who helped her build something more powerful than any news story. A website, simple, black and white, no ads, no names, just 4 words across the top. They were never silent. On it, she published everything and gave inmates past and present a place to tell their own stories, anonymously, safely. Thousands submitted testimonies. Within days, what started as a whisper became a movement. Meanwhile, inside Graybrook, panic spread. Guards were suspended. The warden was placed on administrative leave. An internal investigation was announced, but people weren't buying it anymore, especially not after Amara uploaded one final video. It showed her come clear-eyed, standing in front of the prison she was born in, the same place she had disappeared from just a week before. She looked straight into the camera and said, "You tried to silence my mother. You tried to erase me, but you forgot one thing. I was born in your cage, and that means I know exactly how to break it." Then the screen cut to black. The video went viral overnight. Tens of millions of views. Celebrities reposted it. Lawyers offered pro bono support. Former inmates came forward, publicly confirming what Amara had already proven. People wanted justice. But Amara wanted more than that. She wanted change. And she was about to do something no one expected. Devon, her supporters. Was Amara truly safe from the system she exposed? And what was the final move she had planned all along? 10 days after her release, Amara did something no whistleblower had ever done. She walked straight into the heart of the system that tried to destroy her and demanded a seat at the table. In a press conference streamed live around the world, she stood outside the US Capitol with a folder in one hand and a message in the other. "We don't need your pity," she said into the microphone. "We need policy." Inside that folder, a legislative proposal, one she'd written herself with the help of lawyers, former inmates, and human rights advocates. It was called the Holloway Act, a sweeping bill designed to ban the incarceration of pregnant women in solitary confinement. require all prisons to record and store audio from security cameras, create independent oversight boards made up of civilians, doctors, and formerly incarcerated women, protect whistleblowers inside prison systems from retaliation, provide immediate medical access to all incarcerated individuals regardless of sentence. She didn't ask nicely. She demanded it. Politicians scrambled. Some tried to paint her as too young, too emotional, unqualified. But Amara had something they didn't: truth, proof, and a growing army of people who had been silenced until she gave them a voice. Within 72 hours, 13 states announced investigations into their women's correctional facilities. 3 governors publicly endorsed her proposal, and the Department of Justice. They couldn't ignore her anymore. They opened a formal inquiry into Graybrook Correctional Facility and to others connected to her files. For the first time in decades, prison reform wasn't just a talking point, it was a demand, and it all started with a girl they tried to hide, but with fame came danger. Amara began receiving threats, some vague, others specific. She started moving with a small team of trusted allies. Her mother, still serving her sentence, was placed under protective confinement. When reporters asked if she was scared, Amara's response was simple: "They can come for me, but they can't unsee what I've shown the world." Then, just when it seemed like the movement had reached its peak, Amara did something no one expected. She returned to Graybrook cameras, followed her as she stood at the visitor's entrance. This time, she wasn't going in as a prisoner's child. She was going in as an activist, a witness, a storm, and she was there for one person. Her mother, Serena Holloway. The world watched as the prison, now under investigation, was forced to let her inside. Amara sat across the glass from her mother and said, "Just one sentence. I kept my promise." The footage went viral. People demanded Serena's case be reopened. New evidence from the files Amara had leaked supported what her mother had always claimed, that she was falsely accused, based on faulty evidence and a coerced statement. Within weeks, Serena's sentence was overturned. She walked out of Graybrook, not in chains but hand in hand with the daughter. She raised behind bars. The story had come full circle. But Amara wasn't done yet. Could she transform her viral movement into permanent change? And would the world keep listening when the cameras turned away? A year after her release, Amara Holloway stood before Congress not as a victim, but as a leader. The Holloway Act had passed its first major hurdle, and behind her sat rows of women in grey prison, uniforms transported from different state facilities, just to witness history. Some were mothers, some had suffered abuse, some had stories too painful to speak, but they all had one thing in common. Amara gave them a voice in her opening speech. She didn't talk about herself. Not right away. She talked about the woman who taught her to braid hair inside cell block D, about Angela, who once sewed a teddy bear for Amara using scraps of a prison uniform, about Officer Reuben, who risked his job to get her books and internet access, and about her mother, Serena, who raised her like every word might one day be used to survive. "This isn't just about me," Amara said. "This is about the women you never see. The ones whose screams echo in soundproof cells. The ones who die in shadows so your budgets look clean. Was born in that darkness, but I will not live quietly in your light." The room went silent. Lawmakers didn't look away. They couldn't. The next day, the Holloway Act passed in committee. It wouldn't fix everything. Not yet, but it was a beginning. Real one. Over the next 6 months, 8 prisons were audited and forced to shut down solitary units for pregnant women. Over 100 inmates were granted appeals or retrials thanks to Amara's leaked documents. A growing network of volunteers launched the Holloway Network, providing legal help, education, and psychological care to incarcerated women. And Amara, she turned her website into a full non-profit. They were never silent, with branches in 4 states and more on the way. But even in success, she never forgot where she came from. Each year, on the anniversary of her release, she and Serena returned to the gates of Graybrook, not to protest, not for media, but to listen. They held up signs. "You are not forgotten. We hear you." And women inside the prison would tap on the windows. Some held up hands, others tear-streaked smiles. For them, Amara was more than a symbol. She was proof. The girl, born in prison, the girl who never had a first day of school, never got tucked in at night, never saw a sunset without barbed wire in front of it, became the woman who shook the entire nation. She didn't just survive, she transformed, not by escaping the system, but by dragging its truth into the light and refusing to let the world look away. They told me I was nothing, just another prisoner's daughter, but I wasn't born to be silent. Was born to end the silence. And she did. If this story moved you, don't let it end here. Like this video to help more people discover Amara's powerful journey, and subscribe to the channel for more true stories that uncover hidden truths and inspire change. And remember, sometimes the ones born in darkness become the brightest light. Thanks for watching.